Well, hey friends, welcome to the Business Lounge podcast. I'm your host, Jess Cassity, and today we have a special guest in the house. We have Michelle Vroom, who is a prior PR executive turned multi-six-figure business owner and a mom to three little kiddos. But now she is a business coach who focuses on organic relationship building, marketing strategies, and helping other female entrepreneurs do the same. She also has a podcast that is called Market Like a Boss. So we will definitely share that and everything too, but I'm super excited. So let's get started. Hey, Michelle, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Jess. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, so excited because one of the big topics that we're going to talk about today is based on your organic market, which is a big part of that is Facebook groups and how you have grown yours to what is it, almost 9,000 members now?
Yeah, it's like 8,300, I think. So we're over the 8K mark, which is exciting.
Yes. And that's a huge part of your business, your lead generation, basically nurturing your clients and like a lot of your business and everything, right?
Yep. It really turned into, it wasn't intentional. I didn't imagine what was possible when I started the group. But it has turned into my number one source of leads and clients. And I've had it for 6 years. So that has been the constant, like a very steady source of revenue over the last 6 years.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And everybody is always talking about Instagram and all this stuff. And I just cannot love other platforms. Like Facebook is just where I feel most comfortable. And I feel like it's so different because it's really based on building relationships.
I think that's why I feel so comfortable with it. I don't know if it's because I'm, what they would term an elder millennial and TikTok and like Snapchat are just not, I can't get behind it. I've tried. Instagram, we do some things on, but Facebook has always been sort of my bread and butter. And until that changes, it's like, why fix something that isn't broken,
Yeah, 100%. And I think that so many people think that Facebook groups are dead Facebook in general. And I mean, I know
everything's dead. Yeah, everything's
yeah.
dead, Jess. Like no matter what you look at with marketing, it's like email's dead, Instagram's dead. Like everything's dead. How in the world are we marketing and getting clients then,
And I think that's where a lot of online entrepreneurs really get hung up too, is because they're always trying to stay on the cutting edge. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? What's happening? Where's everybody at? And that's hard.
It'll drive you nuts. And this is spoken by someone who has, 20 years of marketing experience. If I'm saying that as a marketer, it's like, of course it's going to drive you insane to try to keep up with everything. And that's not really the goal. Like, if that's the goal, then I think you're always going to feel one step behind, right? So hopefully this conversation will help with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is too, is like a lot of people are very successful and love Instagram. A lot of people, LinkedIn's really big right now, but those are just not where either you or myself are really like, I just can't connect there. I don't feel like the same way.
No. And, I don't want people to listen to this and think like I can only be successful if I have a Facebook group, because I don't believe that. In fact, I just recommended to one of my clients that she, go all in on Instagram instead of her group. And, I definitely bring that to my coaching, right? What's best for the other person. And I think part of this is, yes, you need to look at where your people are showing up, but let's also be real. People are in a lot of different places, right? It's not like your leads are hanging out in one, corner of the internet and you need a password to get in. So when you take that into account, it really comes down to looking at how do you want to show up? How do you want to market? My Facebook group has not been successful because it is a Facebook group, right? Otherwise you'd be like, well, why doesn't everybody who has a Facebook group, like, why aren't they all making, multiple six figures? Yeah. It's because I enjoy showing up there. It's because I have a passion for it, a love for it, even after 6 years, right? And I think that passion and that love and that excitement that I bring, and it wavers, it wanes throughout the years. Sometimes I feel more excited than other times, but Oh, on the whole, I enjoy showing up there. And that's why it's successful, because it's driven by my excitement, by passion. And I think that's a really important thing to be aware of when you're thinking about monetizing any platform, is if you don't enjoy showing up there and it feels like a chore and it feels like pulling teeth. Like for me, trying to create TikTok videos, number one, I don't even know what I would look like trying to create TikTok videos. But number two, like it would feel like a chore. It would feel like a hassle, and I'm not going to bring my best to it. Now, yes, business is hard and sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do, but given the world we live in and all of the opportunities that we have at our fingertips, there are more than enough platforms and strategies and avenues for you to be able to pursue that feel really good and light your fire, so to speak.
Yes. And I mean, not everybody is successful at Facebook groups, just like you said. It's not made for everybody, and nobody can be successful at every single thing. And I mean, I've seen a lot fail, or some that are really boring, or some that have gotten out of control. So before we dive into all the goodness of Facebook groups, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you are, and what led you down the Facebook group train?
Absolutely. So I, as you mentioned at the beginning, am a mom of 3 boys. I'm a boy mom to the core. I have all the shirts and I love it. I started my business when my oldest was 6 months old. So I've always kind of had a child, there in the wings. And it just, it started as something to bring in some money to still, be able to have the career that I wanted while raising a child. I didn't want the long commute that I had before. And so my family took like a big financial sacrifice to have me go out and start my business. And this was over 8 years ago at this point. And, I wasn't sure what to expect. I was doing like done for you work, like social media management and stuff for clients. And so it just kind of grew from there. And then about a year and a half, maybe even a year into business, I lost 3 clients in one day, just kind of very abruptly. It was all weird situations that I had no control over. I was 8 months pregnant with my second child. So 2 months away from giving birth. So it's not like I could take on a bunch of retainer clients. And so at that point, I had started networking in other Facebook groups, which was great. I was starting to kind of like get my feet wet there. So I didn't rely just on referrals. Not that there's anything wrong with referrals, but it can often be very inconsistent. And so I remember just having this moment of like, I'm just going to keep going, even though I lost most of my client base, and one day I'm going to keep going. So I ended up getting a short-term client that kind of held me through and carried me over. But I would say that story, that situation really served as the impetus for me wanting to create my own community, because I didn't have leads. Like when I lost those 3 clients, I mean, not only was it most of my client base, I didn't know how to get more clients. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like there were no leads, there was no audience, nothing. And so I never wanted to be in that situation again. And so that really started to kind of shift my perspective on marketing and what I wanted to do when it comes to marketing. And so about, I would say maybe 2 years then, like another year later, I wanted to run a free challenge at the time, and I needed a place to house the challenge because I was really trying to, again, build up my leads. I was working with a coach, starting to kind of get some of that stuff in gear. And I opened up the Facebook group. I think I called it, the challenge was called Know Your Target, because it was all about finding your target audience. And I think I called the Facebook group Know Your Target. Literally, that's what it was. It wasn't even Market Like a Boss. And I opened up the group and I did the challenge, and I had every intention of closing the group down after. And I remember talking to my coach about just how much fun the challenge was. I like busted my butt to get like 100 people through, and it was so much fun just being in the group and building those relationships. And she's like, why don't you just keep it open and use it as your primary source of marketing? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like I can keep it open.
Mind blown.
Yeah. Like, why am I even thinking about closing this thing down? So I left it open. I changed the name to Market Like a Boss, and here we are. Like I never imagined that one decision would lead me to a marketing strategy that has just not only felt so good, but has brought in such a consistent, stable revenue for my family. And so I just, started using that as the place where I would show up. I mean, I had shifted into coaching, right? So I was still doing some done for you work, but it shifted into coaching. And so I knew that I needed to like show people who I am as a coach, right? And for me, it was like, what better way than to do lives? I was already doing lives like on my Facebook profile and page. I love showing up through video. That's just kind of the way that I am. Like if you you meet me in person, I'm very outgoing. Like I, really enjoy that. And so for me, it's like, gosh, if people can see me through video, like that adds credibility, that adds trust. And so I started doing like live videos, and I didn't plan out my content. I just kind of showed up and did what I wanted to do. And it really grew from there. I think that people appreciated the honesty, the transparency, the marketing tips that I was given. And the group just kind of took on a life of its own. And, I would say within the year, I was getting mostly all of my clients from my Facebook group. Again, because I really enjoyed being there. I marketed it like a paid offer, something I'm happy to expand upon because I think that made all the difference in just getting the right leads in the door. I don't think that I saw the group as like this place to go get clients. It was a place to show up and build relationships. And I think that allowed me to kind of detach from the outcome as well. Because if you're putting pressure on your marketing strategy or where you're showing up and you're like, this has to bring me in clients now, I think that's why a lot of people close down their groups. I think that's why a lot of people, chase this shiny strategy and then move on to something else. So I know I shared a lot there, but that's kind of like an overview of how I even came to have this group and came to really have the business that I have today.
I love that. And I resonate so much with that. And I think, all of us elder millennials will as well, who love Facebook. And I think, a lot of us who do spend a lot of time on Facebook, we have some of our favorite groups where we spend that time in there, whether they're, somebody else's, but we show up there because of the reasons that you shared, right?
Yep.
So you touched on a bunch of different things that I want to dive deeper into.
Yep.
But first, I think that one of the big things that people need help with or just don't get is how to get people to join your group. But you touched on this because this is really, really important. How do you get the right people in your group? Because, and I know that where this is going to go, because there are several groups, which I think we both are a part of, that have a lot of engagement, have a lot of promotion, and a lot of sharing of groups in there, but that can lead to the wrong people in your group.
Oh my gosh, I could do an entire dissertation on this.
This could be a 5-hour episode if I just kept going forever.
Absolutely. I'll go back to what I said and then expand upon it, which is I market my group differently than I would say most people on Facebook. I feel bold enough to say that. And, I think some of this comes from like the PR background and, what's in it for them, like always thinking about what's in it for other people. Why should, this reporter open up this email and choose my client to interview for, whatever they're doing, like for a media opportunity, why, like always thinking about the other person and not myself. And the way that most people market groups, I think they market groups in a couple of different ways. Number one, they market it as sort of like this catch-all, right? Of I have a free group. Nobody cares that you have a free anything. Nobody cares that nobody cares that you have a free email newsletter. Like gone are the days where we can say that and get a lot of signups. Everything is free, right? And this is where I think a lot of people miss the boat is they don't realize that we have to market the free things the way that we would market the paid things. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but that's actually a big part of how you get the right quality leads in the door. I think some people with groups also market them according to what you just shared, where it's like, come in and open promo. And I had open promo in my group at one point. I will never do it again because it brings in people who are only interested in just dipping in and dipping out. And we still see those people in Market Like a Boss. Like we do a Sell Yourself Saturday every Saturday, which has been quite popular. We don't allow open promo, but we still, know that there's value in people being able to share what they're doing. And you still have some people who come in and dip in and dip out. And those are never the people that get clients from our group. They're never the people that build those kinds of relationships, because how can you build a relationship with someone when you're only dipping in once a week and then dipping out when you need something? It's like that friend who texts you when they want something from you and otherwise you don't hear from them, right? And so I think that the people who are marketing their groups based off of like, we have all these different promo threads, and then you get into the group and it's just one long promo thread with absolutely no value. Like that is a surefire way to, yes, have a big group. You could have a big group. I'm going to be honest with you. My group is actually small if you think about it, because I know we said at the beginning it's 8,300 people, but I've had it for 6 years. I don't even know how many people I could have if I let everybody in.
Yeah.
And if I pursued that same strategy, but I really focused on quality. And that's why my group actually converts. I remember a couple of years ago, somebody said, I think it was like a year or two ago, somebody said in another Facebook group that they were shutting down their group of 22,000 people. And I was like, what are you doing? What? Wait, why? And it wasn't converting.
Yeah.
No, 22,000 members and not a
I
single
know
person was converting.
Boss Moms
Yep.
moved from
Yep.
Facebook to a different platform. And they had a lot of engagement. They had a really good group, but yeah, they're gone.
Yep. So it's just like you see people with these big groups and you think, well, gosh, they've got it made because we're prioritizing vanity numbers. And it's like, no, my group probably converts at a way higher rate than anybody else's group because it's so dialed in. Now, are there times when I could do a better job of that? Of course, right? Nobody's perfect, but I just think that's so important to remember. And it's all because I market it like it's a paid offer. I don't talk about the group itself. I talk about what's happening inside of the group. So if just to give you an example of what this looks like, because I think this is actually the first step to monetizing a group, right? Is growing it with the right people. Otherwise, you're not going to monetize it. And so, an example of this would be like, okay, I just did a training on 4 ways to deal with imposter syndrome in your marketing. If I go and I'm networking, right, in other Facebook groups, which I do daily, and I encourage my clients to do, and I encourage anybody listening to do, because it's like you have such an opportunity to network and not to do it from the purpose of just getting clients, but building those relationships. And if I come across somebody in another group who says, well, imposter syndrome in my marketing, right? Like I've seen people say that, talk about that. I now have something I can point them back to, right? If I say to them, and you have to be careful, obviously, given different promo rules in other groups, but if I say to them, I just did a training on this inside of my group, and I'm specific about what the training is, notice how I don't say, hey, I talk about imposter syndrome in my Facebook group. Like that's not compelling enough. I have this very specific training on this specific topic that is relevant to you. They almost always join. And then you have somebody who is dialed in. And because it's so specific, given the way that I marketed the group, that person's going to join and they're right away going to get immersed in the group, right? Because they're going to go looking for that training. And then what happens? People look for one training and then they start binging. And it's like, late at night when I'm scrolling through Instagram reels and I'm like, how did I get here? It's 30 minutes later. What happened? I lost track of time. That's what happens. But the good news is that means that person is on the path to becoming a client because they're consuming your information. They're starting to kind of get to know you better, right? That's their in. That would never happen if you said like, oh, just join my group. And it's not to say you always have to have this very specific pitch, if you will. But I do think the more specific you can be about the value that your group brings, the better quality leads you're going to get in the door. And the more likely it is that those leads are going to keep coming back, which is also important for monetizing. If a lead joins your group and then you never see them again, or they dip in and dip out so infrequently, you're not going to be able to build up to the 10 to 12 different touch points that someone needs in order to buy from you, which is a whole other conversation. But I would say that's the first step.
So what I'm understanding, Michelle, is that it's really important to come from a place of value.
Yes.
And provide that first. Not
service
selling.
Before the sale. Yep. Service before the sale. I can't say that enough. I think that the people in this industry who are saying, groups are dead or people aren't buying anymore, they're not buying the way they used to. Do I think buyer behavior has changed to some extent? Of course, that is normal, right? But I think the people who are saying that, they don't have a way to build that kind of trust. They're so focused on how do I get the sale right now? It feels like it's going to take too long if you focus on serving before the sale, but actually it's one of the fastest ways to get the sale. So again, like it's so counterintuitive to like what we're thinking and what we're being told. And we really have to sort of turn off the part of ourselves that wants that instant gratification. Because I think there's always going to be that part, that side to everything, because we're human. But we really do have to turn that off so that, to your point, we can focus on serving.
So would you say that your main source of marketing your Facebook group is really just creating relationships, providing value, and just engaging with others inside other Facebook groups?
I would say that's been the primary way that I've grown the group. The other way, there's a couple of ways. That's the primary one. The other way is just group members getting so much value that they refer other people to the group. So like we can see in the membership questions where someone's coming from. So a lot of people say like, another member referred me or invited me. So that's great. because obviously and I think this is the other message is I started showing up and providing value from day one when there were 10 people in the group, right? It's like I didn't wait for there to be some magic number to start showing up and offering value. I showed up like crazy for the people that were in there, even when it was crickets, even when it felt like nobody was watching because it was such a small group. And by doing that, word spread, right? And that's the thing that I think is important for all of us to remember. If you do a good job for your clients, right? And you're not just focused on how do I get more clients, but doing a good job for the ones you have, they're going to tell other people and you're actually going to get more, right, coming your way. And I think this is it's kind of the same case with marketing. So I would say that's probably the other way that we get a lot of people into the group. And then Facebook just suggests our group, right? So it's also, we're very dialed in terms of the name of the group and trying to include keywords and all of that, because obviously we've had people search for the group and it pops up. But when your group is also engaged in the sense that you're showing up, you're leading the way, people are asking questions, they're even lurking, right? Facebook still tracks the lurkers because your active member rate inside of Facebook group includes people who are just watching, right? Who are just reading stuff. So if people are doing that and they keep coming back to your group, Facebook will also suggest your group to other people. And we've had times where we had a big influx of people for whatever reason, whether it was I was hosting an event inside of the group or somebody invited a bunch of people or whatever. And we noticed that Facebook does even more inviting on our behalf. So Facebook is definitely, tuning into is this group valuable? Are people, engaging and participating and coming back to it? Because Facebook wants to keep people on Facebook longer, right? So I would say those are the three main ways, but definitely the primary way has been to go out and to, talk about the things that are happening inside of our group instead of waiting for people to find us. I've always been proactive about going out into into other communities where people are hanging out and letting them know that I exist. And I think that's something else that no matter what platform you're on, you need to be doing on a daily basis.
And I agree 1,000%. And that actually brings me right to the second question, which is the engagement in your group. Because, as you mentioned, you show up, you're providing the content, and also the engagement is helping Facebook recommend your group. Mm-hmm. But how do you create the engagement in your group?
First things first, and I say this to encourage anybody listening who's it feels like crickets, it feels like pulling teeth. I think that's just you have to pay your dues. I hate to say it that way, but it's true. Until you get to 200 members, I want to say it's 200 to 300. That feels like the sweet spot when Facebook starts recommending and suggesting. Your first 100 members is probably going to be the hardest that it takes to get there, and everything compounds from there. I think it's what do people say? Your first 100K in business is the hardest to make, and then it kind of compounds. And so I think that that's the case for groups. And so if your group is under 100 or even under 200, you are going to be the person who has to do a lot of the legwork. It's just the way it is. And so if you're not willing to do that, right? And I say this with love, that it may not be a good fit for you. That may, you said earlier, not everybody is a good fit for running a Facebook group. And I think you just have to know that it's going to require a lot of you. I like to say that it's, and you'll chuckle at this analogy, especially being an elder millennial, it's like school dances. I remember going to my first 7th grade school dance, and how awkward, right? And they had the gym set up for the boys who didn't want to do anything. And so you'd have girls at one end, boys at the other end. It's who's going to make the first move here? And inevitably a girl would have to go to the center of the gym, drag one of the boys over to start dancing. And it was just so awkward. It's kind of like that, right? If we're really being honest, and we have to be the ones that are going to meet our audience where they're at. I think that it's easy to feel frustrated and be well, they're not engaging in my group, so I'm not going to engage. No, you have to be engaging, even if it feels like they're not listening. Now, I do think that even if your group is small and you're struggling with that a little bit, because it does get easier, the more people that come in, the more people that show up, of course, you're going to get different personalities, and some people are going to be more vocal and bring out the others, et cetera, et cetera. But I also think that there's a beautiful piece of this journey where your group is small enough that you can build relationships individually. I can't do that anymore. Do you know what I mean? And so, I remember when my group was still small and I was kind of in that place, I would reach out personally to members because I could, right? I had enough bandwidth to do that and just see what are they looking. Sometimes people are afraid to speak up too. So even with a bigger group and even in the position that I'm in now, like we still engage personally with members. When they join the group, we check in just to see like what are people wanting, because sometimes people feel more comfortable sharing that in Messenger with just me than in a public group, right? Even though you can post anonymously, I think people still get weird about that. And so what that means is like I can still get input to direct the type of content that I'm putting out there. So I think that leads me to the second piece of how do you get engagement, right? First, you need to show up and don't wait for them to engage with you. But then second, are you actually sharing things that are relevant to them? Well, how do you know? Number one, I think like give yourself some credit. You're an expert in your field. I didn't like sit around being like, are they going to care about this? I was like, I think they need to care about this. And usually I was spot on, right? But then I also took the input that they gave me from reaching out and from getting to know them. And I would notice patterns in what people were saying they needed help with. And I would go live. And a lot of people would lurk and would watch that stuff and then send me a message being like, hey, I'm interested in working with you. So I also want to normalize that. I think a lot of the buyers are the lurkers, are the ones who are binging all of your, they're watching all of my lives. They're watching a ton of Michelle behind the scenes and I don't even know it. So just being willing to show up and to share valuable content that gets them listening and then continue to promote that content outside of your group, that is also going to drive engagement. We're also seeing questions work really well right now. And that might sound like a no-brainer, but there was a time where we were getting like a lot more engagement live on our lives. And now we get a lot of replay people, right? Which is fine. There's still engagement that's happening, but it's more so after the fact. We tend to see a lot of engagement on the questions. So just asking like a simple question where people can raise their hand, or we do these polls where it's like, what's the number one area that you're struggling with when it comes to marketing? And we give them 3 options and it's like A, B, or C. Put your letter in. It's so easy for them to just pop an A and like they don't have to think about it. One of my most popular posts, which had nothing to do with business, was where are the boy moms at? And people were like, they love talking about themselves, right? People love talking about themselves. So I also, I think, utilize the questions in my group to, yes, get engagement, but to continue to learn about my people, because I never, ever, ever, even after 8 years of running this business, want to be in a position where I'm like, I know everything there is to know, because people are always changing. So I think that's another thing that you can do to, yes, get engagement, but also just kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what people want, which then allows you to create more relevant content. I would say a fourth tip that I would give when it comes to boosting engagement in your group is to also just create a party, right? Like I call them destination events. It could be a challenge. It could be a webinar, a workshop, a masterclass, whatever. Like you don't have to call it that. You know what I mean? Like everybody's doing a challenge. It could be something else, but something that happens inside of your community. So people have to join your community to get in, which is going to help you, depending on the topic, get more qualified leads in the door. But then we always see a massive jump in engagement when we do those things. Like, to give you an example, 2 years ago, actually, it was probably only a year and a half ago. It was February, and I was like, I'm like feeling those winter blues. I felt like engagement had grown stale in the group, and I say that because that happens. And I just felt like disconnected with my people, and I'm like, how can I boost engagement again and just like jump back in and feel connected again? And I started thinking, what do people need right now? They want clients, and people were sharing that they were having a hard time kind of staying consistent and getting clients. And so I randomly, as in like I did this, there was like 24 hours of prep and that was it. I did a 30 days to new clients challenge. I had nothing prepared, no sign up. It was just happening in the group where every day for 30 days, I gave a practical, tangible tip for how you could go out and get new clients. And I promoted like accelerate to clients audits. Our engagement blew up, and that continues to be like, we left all the replays available. We turned it into a lead magnet. That continues to be one of our most popular lead magnets that has also produced clients. And so I say that because I wasn't trying to get clients. I was just thinking, how can we engage? How can we make this, an atmosphere where people feel connected to one another, where people feel connected to the group? And I think sometimes just asking that question can also help you boost engagement, right? Create engagement if you don't have any, and then boost engagement if you feel like engagement has taken a dip or your group feels a little dead lately. Like, you can always liven it up. This is why when people are like, my group is dead, I'm going to shut it down, I'm like, no, don't do this first, So those were probably like 4 of my best tips for how you can kind of keep the engagement going, while also just normalizing the fact that there's going to be natural ebbs and flows. Like during the summer, we tend to see some ebbs and flows because people are, on vacation or managing the kids for the summertime, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a little bit slower in some areas. You were talking about, in the beginning, how you may only be talking to yourself or the crickets. And, one of the things that I love about Facebook groups is that content that you create, it stays there and it doesn't necessarily get lost if you don't want it to. So,
Yes.
like you were saying earlier about when you're marketing the group and you're providing value and stuff, all of that content that you've created, whether it was a year ago, 6 years ago, you can save it and tag people back into it. So it's always there as a living, just like your 30-day challenge, which I love.
So funny you just said that because I think it was last week, had somebody comment on a post from a year ago. I was like, wait, why is this being brought back up to the newsfeed? Because of course it
Yep.
then brings it back up. I was like, did something happen? Like I looked at like most recent comments and someone found it.
Yeah.
They went back and they found it. It was not something that was like pinned to the top or anything like that. So that's also such a good reminder that it has a longer shelf life than we think. And I think that's actually a really helpful thought for people who maybe feel like,
Yeah.
if no one's watching, is it a waste of time to create this content? It's never a waste of
Right.
time. Even if just one person sees it, it's not a waste of time. But then with the point that you just made about the shelf life, more than one person is going to see it.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't really, understand it when it first came out or appreciate it. But the guide section that you can
Mhm.
add to your Facebook group, really helps with, organizing that content to have, because I do know that there are some people who run the Facebook groups successfully who they don't make, new content every day. They make,
Yep.
maybe once a week they do a live or something like that, but they're constantly tagging people in those older
Oh
posts.
yeah.
And I mean, some of those ones have been there for years, like you were saying, and have, 7, 8,000 comments on them because it's still relevant. And why redo it? I mean, you can, but
Can I share two tips related to that are going to
yeah,
help you
100%.
kind of take it? Like, I feel like I've talked a lot about, okay, here's how you get the right leads in, here's how you get them
Yeah.
to start watching and all of that. But then this is how you really nurture, because you're going to need to nurture. Like I
Yeah.
said earlier, people need to see and hear things at least 10 to 12 different times before they buy. And so we have to create that in our group, right? If you want your group to be your main moneymaker, you've got to be able to create that journey for them. And so one of the things that we did, well, there's two things. Number one, when someone comes into our group, we send them a personal welcome message. There's ways to automate this with different systems, but we send them a personal welcome message, and it's a simple, we're not trying to like sell anything or push anything. It's a simple, hey, what's the number one marketing challenge you're facing right now? We have a ton of great resources in here for you, and we'd love to recommend something. Who's not going to, I mean, people don't respond. Not everybody responds, but a lot of people respond, right? And whenever they tell me something, I find it. Sometimes I have to search in my own group if it's not in the guides, and I suggest it and I tag them in it, so that immediately they're going straight to another video. Again, I'm creating that authority and that expertise from day one. I'm not waiting to do that, which I think is so important, right? That helps speed up the sales process and shorten the sales cycle. And then the second thing we did is we took, because I've done so many videos over the years, and it's like, well, how do we like take the process that of tagging people in other videos and make it a little bit more streamlined? And we took our best videos, our most popular videos, we put them into Member Vault, which we use for like my group programs and housing curriculum, and we put it into Member Vault. We made it a free, mini course, if you will. We call it the Market Like a Boss Vault, and that's a lead magnet. And now people get the opportunity to opt in, and we can also see who's watching the different trainings. We have some automation set up behind the scenes to support people and kind of pointing them back to the vault and checking in. We have it synced up so that if someone watches a training, they also get added to like our lead tracker and ClickUp. So we're even able to create some systems to see who's watching and what they're interested in. And that helps us kind of keep tabs on who might be a good fit to invite to a destination event or to invite to, a call. And so I think that has also really helped us utilize our trainings in a little bit of a more streamlined kind of sales focused way. Again, like you don't have to do that from the get-go. Like I built my way up to that, but it's a really helpful tip that, to be honest with you, I wish I had done sooner.
Oh my gosh. And I know, I honestly, like, I love Facebook groups so much. And I mean, I have had several over the years that I've admin or been a part of, and some are more difficult than others. And I don't have the
Sure.
passion for all of them,
Yeah.
for sure. But one of the things that you were talking about, that I love, and I do the exact same about, welcoming people and, connecting them with a piece of value inside the group. But one of the things I wanted to mention about that is that's also creating the engagement inside the group that's making that stuff
Yep.
pop back up. And that's helping other people who may have missed it and stuff. So even your old stuff from years ago is going to come back up because of that.
100%. I think one of the most important marketing lessons is that we always have to sell people on taking the next step. So, for example, if someone joined your group, the relationship is just beginning. I think a lot of people treat it as it's the end of the relationship. I got them in the group. Now I just need to go we focus so much on numbers, right? It's like, no, this is the beginning of your relationship with them. And so you have to sell them on why they should keep coming back. So we also collect email addresses when someone joins our group. So you better believe when I'm going live, we're sending out an email. We're not waiting for people to find it. We're trying to do our part to get people there. Like I don't sit around and spend time complaining about the algorithm because that is entirely unhelpful. It's not going to further me in my goal. And it's certainly not going to help me monetize my group. In fact, if I focus on the algorithm and complaining about it, I'll probably monetize my group less, just to be totally honest.
And you
right?
can't control it. So
you can't control it. What can you control? You can control your ability to get in front of your people and to give them a good reason to keep coming back. And so I think to your point, like that's what we all need to do is we need to sell them on what is the next step. Why should I come back and watch this live? Why should I show up live? Why should I sign up for that challenge? Why should I show up to the challenge live? Like, why should I watch the replays? Like, we just always have to be reminded that we're constantly selling. I mean, even when you sign a client, right? Like, if I sign a client to my group program, we also have ways to help them get the most out of the program and sell them on why they should, like sell them on why they should attend the calls live. I mean, it's just that's human nature is giving people a reason, not convincing, not from a place of convincing, but giving them a reason to show up and take the next step. If we can do that and remind ourselves to do that, we are going to be just way more powerful marketers.
Okay. And that totally, goes right into the big number 3 question, which is obviously like, how are you monetizing? How are you selling in your group? Because for a lot of people who do enjoy making content or helping others, especially coaches and stuff, love providing value, but really suck at sales. And they don't want to do that. They don't want to ask people, well, sign up, buy my program, do this, let's work together. They just want to be like, oh, this is what you got to do. Here's all, here's everything to fix it. So how do you do that in a non-salesy way, but make money, Michelle? How do you make money?
Oh my goodness. Okay. This is also something I could do a dissertation on. I think first and foremost.
Okay. So this episode is now going to turn into 10 other episodes.
Yes. I think so. I want to go back to something I said earlier because I think this is so important. This is probably one of the number one things I coach my clients on is really leaving your attachment at the door. Like checking yourself and not being detached from whether or not someone signs on as a client. If you are truly detached, what does that actually mean? That means that you're putting your own needs last and putting the other person first. You cannot be salesy when you're doing that. That is not possible. You know how people are salesy or when people are salesy? They're salesy when they are so focused on, I need you because I have a goal that I'm trying to hit. I need you to sign on so that I can get what I want. It's all about them. That's when we feel salesy. And so I just want to encourage, the listeners here that you really can't be salesy when you're detached and you're focusing on true service, not serving for the sale to get the sale, but just really helping someone. And so I think that creates sort of a willingness to show up and to actually make invitations, right? I think a lot of people also struggle because they're so afraid of hearing no, or they're afraid of, perceived rejection. They're afraid that like every no means that I have a missed opportunity and I have fewer chances to get what I want. And it's like, actually, your no's, I did an entire podcast episode on this. Your no's are what lead to the yeses. You being willing to hear no, number one, it gives you data and information. Number two, that person who said no, chances are high they're going to still come back. Like I've had people who have said no to me. I had someone who said no and then 2 weeks later came back. I've also had someone say no and then a year later come back. Like I don't even worry about what's the time frame going to be. I just know, you know what? It's a no for right now and that's okay. I don't focus too much on that. And I think the more willing you are to hear no, the more you're going to make invitations, whether it be invitations in your content, whether it be invitations, on a live, whether it be personal invitations in just the communication that you're having with your members. So most people, to your point, they're doing a lot of serving, but then they're not ever asking, right? They're not ever saying, hey, I can help you. So some of this also means that you need to be confident and sold on your ability to help people and on your offer. Okay. So that's the other piece of that. I really think that when it comes to selling and talking about your offer, it's easy to sell when someone is already pre-sold on you. I think that's the last piece I would say here, is if you can use your content and your lives and the nurturing that you're doing to sell someone on why they should work with you, then when they get on a call, they're going to be ready to go. It doesn't always happen. Doesn't mean every call is like that. But imagine if more often than not, your calls were like that. Like I got on a call, the first time this happened to me, it was years ago. I got on a call with somebody. I went through the whole like song and dance, right? Got to the point where I was like, okay, are you ready to learn more about working with me? She's like, I've been ready to hand over my credit card since I got on this call. I've just been waiting for you to tell me how to pay. And I was like an eye opener. She'd been following me in my group. She'd been watching. I didn't even know that she was watching, right? And so I think that the way that I approach content creation is a little bit different because I focus on documenting versus creating. I document the work that I'm doing as a coach. I document the conversations I'm having with my clients. I document the aha moments. I document all of that. And so sometimes in the process of documenting, I'm not even putting out content that's like, work with me, work with me. It's inadvertently doing that because people are seeing, oh, this is what Michelle just coached one of her clients on. Oh, this was a breakthrough. Like they can actually see the process of what it's like to be coached by me, which builds trust and makes them more amenable to wanting to work with me. So a lot of times people reach out to me and they're already at least 70% of the way sold. And the rest of the way is probably like helping them just work through their own fears, which again, if I'm detached from the outcome and I'm just coaching them through the decision, like that feels a lot better. So I also just want to say like selling can feel so much better. We're not, I never have to convince people to work with me because I don't have to, right? Like what I'm doing in my group and the way that I have my group set up and all the things that we've talked about here today are allowing me to monetize it. And so again, like monetizing it, I think doesn't come from just in every post being like, work with me, work with me. It comes from you really shedding light on and being transparent. And I know that word means different things to different people, but it really involves you being transparent and shedding light on who you are as an expert. And you don't have to be a coach to do this. I have many clients who are done for you service providers who do an incredible job at this, but it's just bringing people behind the scenes and showing them why you're different. We have to do that, right? Like we have to do that. There's a lot of people who do what you do, but you choosing to document and really, bring people behind the scenes like that, I think sets you apart as somebody that people can seek out.
So what do you say is the transition from providing the content or the value to sales? Is it, special words? Is it just dropping a link like here's, how to sign up? Or is it, hey, are you ready to hop on a call? Like what is the transition stage?
Some of that depends on like what the piece of content is. So for example, if I'm doing a live, obviously, at the end, I'm going to say something like, hey, if this really resonated with you, like book a call with me, like, or sometimes just even reach out through Messenger. Like sometimes people feel more confident and comfortable reaching out through Messenger first. And so I might say something like that. If it's a straight up sales post, I will give more details about, the offer that I'm marketing and like what it's like to work with me and all of that. And then I either will send them to, again, Messenger or send them to book a call. I've also done audits. I think I mentioned that earlier in my Facebook group. And so an audit might be like, at one point we were doing accelerate to clients audits where we were taking a look at like how people were getting clients and how they could do it faster. And so that audit was really an opportunity for us to kind of dig in with someone. And then at the end of the call, because it wasn't like a primary sales call, that wasn't the main focus. It would be, hey, are you interested in learning more? And then we might either tell them about it right then and there or book a follow-up call. And that follow-up call is obviously more sales focused. So some of it I think depends on like, what is the main, what topic are you talking about? What is the main message here? But I feel like if you don't sound like a broken record, and this is going to, like some people are going to hear this and be like, oh my gosh, I have to be so salesy. That's not what I'm saying. You should feel like a broken record in terms of, hey, send me a message. Hey, reach out. I can help you. Like if you are not actively saying that over and over and over again in some form, and I think what you say matters less than how you say it. Like I've had people who go through like their script of like what to say and the words themselves sound good, but they're so forced, right? It's so like robotic. So, really, again, you being excited to sell, excited to talk about your offer, excited for the people who you can help. Like you've got to be confident in what you're doing. And so when you do that, even just a simple, call to action that's like, hey, I want to help. I know how to help. I've been doing this for a while. This is what I do every day with my clients. That I think is the most effective tool in making that transition from, here's what's going on for you to the bridge of here's how I can help. Now, I will also say that there's a certain type of content that does a really good job of making that transition, and I would call it thought shifting content. So in addition to the lives that I mentioned, destination events, those kinds of things, and documenting, I will also put out content that really shifts people's perspective. So, they might think that they have X, Y, and Z problem. Actually, this is your problem. They might think this is the way to solve their problem. Actually, this is like, people are trying to solve problems in a whole lot of different ways, right? And some of them I'm like, what are you doing? And so being able to explain what the real problem is and how to solve it and how your solution makes it different. I think if you can put out some content that really speaks to that as well, and then encourage people to reach out if they'd like more details, I think that's super powerful too. So the cool part about all of this is that there's a lot of different ways to say the same thing. And I think just like not being so attached to, I have to do it in this exact way, but hey, like I can talk about it here. I can talk about it there. I can, I've gone live with clients in my group and had them share the stories and have people actually hear from them live and then say, if you want, a story like this, if you want this to be a reality, like I'd love to help you. So everything I say comes from an earnest place of I want to help. And so when I know that I'm feeling that way, I might say it differently every time, but it's coming from the same energy, if you will, not to be like woo-woo about it, but energy does matter. And our perspectives do matter when we're delivering that kind of call to action.
Yeah, you can be saying the same thing over and over, but in all those different ways so that it doesn't feel like people are being sold to all the time, because
exactly.
You're hearing work with me, let's connect, let's talk about it. But it's all in these different ways that it doesn't feel like it's being driven down your throat.
Not at all. I had somebody tell me one time that my sales posts don't feel like selling. And I think what she meant was like the posts where I'm educating people on what their problem is or what the solution is, I'm still serving and offering value, right? If they decide not to work with me or not to reach out from that post, they still walked away with some incredible value because it's like, wow, I now know how to solve my problem, or I now have a better sense of clarity and direction, which is a big win for people, right? Like that's why people who are posting just how-to content, I think they think the big win is I'm going to tell you what to do. But actually the bigger win and the thing that has to happen first before somebody's even equipped to go execute a strategy is the clarity and understanding of, oh, this is what it is. Because what does that give you? It gives you hope. It gives your prospects hope. And they need that in order to buy from you too.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is that, people are always so afraid to provide too much value and everything for free that nobody's going to want to work with them because what is left to buy? And there's just no such thing as too much free value because anybody can go solve any of their problems anytime right now. All the answers are already out there. They've been out there. You can do your own research. The problem is people lack that ability to, follow through, accountability, having it all packaged up into one place. So no matter how much value you provide or where it is, it's still never going to solve all their problems.
Oh my gosh. Like if information were all that it took, we would all be like on a beach in Aruba somewhere, like multimillionaires, right? Because we are not lacking for information. We're lacking for execution. We're lacking for accountability. We're lacking for clarity. Because there's a lot of different solutions. How can you help your people understand what they need to do to solve their problem and how you can help? Like it is our job to do that. There's a lot of people, in the market who are also giving really bad advice, And so for me, it's like, even if you never work with me, like I at least want to help you figure out how to make sense of all of this. Nobody's given a manual for how to run a business and how to market. And not everybody's background is in marketing, right? So even if your background is in marketing, like you can actually fall down the rabbit hole of like, analyzing every single little thing because you know it so well. So I just think that clarity and direction is important. And then to your point, like I couldn't agree more. When people are so worried about giving away too much, I think that's when we show up from a very rigid place and very robotic place. Don't worry about that. The only way that you could give too much and not have people buy is if you're giving, and never telling them how they can work with you. Right. Do both. Serve. Invite them to learn more. Serve, invite them to learn more. If you can do both of those things consistently, you're going to sign clients. You're going to monetize your group or wherever it is that you're showing up. But in this case, your group.
Yeah. And if it's not a Facebook group, if it's somewhere else, it's just building that community where your people are.
Yep.
But, for us and our conversation today, it's Facebook groups
Yeah.
because that's
Yep.
what we love and that's what comes easier to us.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you want to tell the audience? Any extra tips for them to walk away with today?
I think just, again, really thinking about why should someone care? Like people are so busy. I'm preaching to the choir here, like not just talking about myself, but it's just like people are busy. We're inundated. We're kind of tired too. Like we've got information fatigue, I think, decision fatigue. And so if you can just tell them why they should care, you're going to get more people taking action in terms of joining your group or wherever you're showing up. You're going to get more people taking action in terms of booking calls, watching lives, like consuming your information. And so don't be afraid to do that over and over again. Again, if you sound like a broken record, you're doing it with the right frequency. Right. And, don't focus. This is my last, I guess, piece of advice along those lines. Like, don't focus on the people who need to be convinced. Don't focus on the people who are going to find something wrong with what you have to say. I think a lot of times we end up inadvertently speaking to people who need to be told, like, you need this. Come on, like bringing them along the journey. But speak and shift to talking about the people who understand. Like you might need to shift their thoughts around what the actual problem and solution is, but like they're hungry for that solution. If you can speak to those people and think about those people, it also makes showing up a lot easier because then you're not thinking about like the quote unquote naysayers. You know what I mean? So I think that's important too, across the board when it comes to marketing and messaging.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Okay, tell everybody about your first 100 Facebook group.
Yes.
That you have to offer, and then tell everybody how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. Well, first, I'd love to connect. Obviously, I have a podcast, Market Like a Boss. My Facebook group is also called Market Like a Boss. So if you want to see kind of how I run the group, again, I'm not perfect, but a lot of the things that we talk about, here I am executing on. And so it kind of gives you like a little bit of a real life example, if you will. So would love to have you join the Market Like a Boss group. I share a lot of tangible, easy, practical tips when it comes to marketing, messaging, your mindset. I do like weekly lives on that. So I'd love to have you join there. And then my Your First 100, it was a guide. It started as a guide and then I turned it into like a starter bundle because I have a bunch of things in there. And so the Your First 100 guide is really all about, getting your first or your next 100 members. And I think that even if you just follow the things that are in this bundle, you are going to be getting 100 members in your group every single month, which if you think about it, 100 super high quality leads should translate to at least 1 or 2 new clients every month. So that's also, I think, important to look at when it comes to consistency. I talk about if you've never started a group before, I give you kind of like a tutorial on how to do that, how to name your group, how to optimize it for clients. And then I also have an entire section on just how to grow the group and what are those kind of tangible, practical steps. It also comes with some daily email tips on how to boost engagement. So that is also going to be super helpful. So I love it. It's a great bundle. It's, again, super tangible, super practical, and you can definitely check that out.
I love that. That's definitely going to help everybody get started and set the foundations for their group as well.
Yes, for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for being here with us today. You've provided a wealth of knowledge, and I hope that it's gotten people really excited to see that, marketing and sales and stuff doesn't have to be scary or salesy, and that it can come, pretty natural and be actually kind of easy.
Yes, I hope so too. Thank you for having me. I think this is an important conversation, whether you have a group or not.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. Wherever your community is, definitely it should be the same. Well, thank you so much, everybody, and we will see you next time.